Hey everyone, pardon my appearance. I'm covered in sweat and sawdust because I'm at our cabin property right now. I haven't been here in about 2 months, and when I showed up, there was a tree that was precariously perched over the cabin, so I had to get that cut down. And in typical East Tennessee fashion, it feels like it's about 100 degrees and 100% humidity. So, yeah. Good news is I got a nice log to sit on out of the tree I cut. But I told you guys 6 weeks ago or something I was going to do this video, and I didn't get around to it yet, but I was determined to do that, answer some of your questions, explain a little bit more about my experience on a loan and the circumstances surrounding my tap out. Um, so, first of all, I want to thank everyone that watches the show. If it weren't for the fans, there wouldn't be a show. And without the show, I wouldn't have had that wonderful experience. So, thank you all. I've been a big fan of the show from the beginning. So, I want to talk a little bit about the experience, about what the show entails from a participant's point of view. This is the most real survival show out there. It is still a show, it is still edited for content. There still are rules and fish and game regulations and conservation regulations that we have to follow, but it's 100% real. And you know that going into the show. And you know that leading up to it when you're doing your training, a couple weeks of that before you go into the field. But it doesn't really hit until you get dropped off. You know, we are put on boats at something like 4 in the morning. It's pitch black. We get launched out to another relaunch location that we've never been to, that's completely remote. And then, after some camera shots from the camera crew that does those shots, one by one, you see all these people you've got to know over the past couple weeks get launched off into a boat. And you don't know when or if you'll see those people ever again. And so all of a sudden it's your turn and you get put into a boat and you go across this crazy beautiful lake, incredible mountains. The scenery is edible, and you get dropped off, and here's your camera equipment, and here's the 10 items and your clothing you're allowed, and see you later. And twice a day you've got a satellite communicator that you basically just hit a pre-programmed button message that says all okay, and to let them know that you're still alive. And other than that, a week later, with no notice, a boat shows up and says, hey, give me your memory cards from your cameras. Here's a few more batteries for your GoPros, and see you in another week, kind of thing. It is as real as it gets. So that in itself is, it's a little bit of a shock to the system, even though you know it's coming. You think you're mentally prepared for it, and then you actually get out there, and it's pretty crazy feeling. So I don't know exactly how I want to, what order I want to go in. There are some questions about things that I did on the show, and I wanted to address some of those things. Genuine questions. There's plenty of trolls and know-it-alls out there, and they're best left alone. But people that have genuine questions about why I did things I did, or things like that. So first of all, I see a lot of people saying, hey, how come, I saw Nate put out a static line out in the water. How come no one else did that? Pretty sure we all did that. I certainly did day 2. I had a line out there. We're only allowed barbless hooks. We're not allowed to use bait. So I'm guessing that, most of us were pretty unsuccessful. I didn't get anything. I had static lines out every day. And you're, limited to the number of hooks and number of lines in the water, et cetera, the number of fish you can catch. But I didn't catch anything. I made flies, I made lures, I made, all kinds of different things that I knew to try, and it didn't work. So the show is not going to show all 10 of us putting static lines in the water. There's limited amount of time for the show. That would be boring. So they showed Nate pulling a fish out of the water on a static line. Awesome. That's interesting TV. So, yeah, there's things that you don't get to see, um, unfortunately. And it's just the way it has to go because we're filming 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day, multiple cameras, 10 of us. And so the editors of the show have this massive amount of footage and they have to condense it down into each person's story. They have to tell a story about who we are, kind of show our personality, and have a story arc of getting dropped off to the time we tap out or we get pulled out or you win. They have to create that story arc. And I don't envy them with that task. That is a difficult task. You're never going to make everyone happy. And whether it's the viewers at home wish certain things were shown more or the participants say, hey, you didn't show me doing this. You can't please everybody. And I understand completely why they chose to do certain things. It's a tough job. So just know that you don't get to see everything that goes on out there. You just can't. Day 6, I'm out there. Hey, why were you so far? You wasted so many calories going away from your property, searching along the shoreline. You got caught in a storm, etc., etc. Why would you do something like that? That's stupid. And I did explain when I was doing it, and it doesn't make the cut on TV, but I did explain that I needed to explore the boundaries of my property for a couple reasons. For one, I was really hoping to find any kind of litter that was usable. I was really hoping to find a water bottle out there I could use, a washed up water bottle of anything. And over the couple miles of shoreline that I hiked, and it was not easy shoreline to hike because there's washed up trees on the shore. I had to go over and around and through the water and up into the bushes and, stuff like that. It took a long time to traverse it, but it was really important to explore to find that. And, I think it was shown that I found one really beat up beer or soda can, and it had been washed in the sand and silt so long that the aluminum was super thin, but I thought that would make good fishing lure material. And I was both dismayed and super happy that there was no litter out there. There's just no garbage out there, and I love seeing that. Now, being a participant on their show, that's not what I wanted to see. I wanted to find something usable. But the prime reason why I did that is because I had such shallow water where my location was for fishing. And, we're primarily going after bull trout. They have to be 24 inches or larger. We're going after rainbow trout. And I'm not going to catch them in 4 feet of water or 3 feet of water. And so I had rigged up rock sinkers. I had rigged up wooden floats so that I could cast out and test the depth of the water and see what I was getting into. And I stopped everywhere along that I could that looked like it might get deeper, fished off from the rocks. They showed a brief moment of that, trying to find deeper fishing waters. And I wanted to find that partly because I was still in the early stages of building my cabin. Now, those were not, as I went further down the property, there was not really much good location for building a shelter. I had most of my property was forest fire blowdown. I believe Clay called it jackstraw, with all the trees blown over. That was the majority of my property. It doesn't look like that along the shore because there's growth along the shore, and there are some beaver swamps along the shore there. But there was not a lot of places that I could build a shelter. However, I was willing to reconsider it if I could find a place that had good fishing grounds. And as far as the storm coming in, two things regarding that is, for one, the weather changed so quickly out there. That entire lake is ringed by very tall mountains, very sharp, steep peaks, and weather changes dramatically in 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, it can go from perfectly calm, beautiful, to white caps and 2-foot waves. However, when I was out there, I even saw that. I mentioned, hey, a storm's coming in, but I've already hiked this far. I'm not turning back now. Regardless of the storm or anything like that, I have to make it to the end of my property. I have to do this exploration because I'm not going to do it a second time. If I don't find a fishing location, I'm not coming back again because there was no good hunting ground, there was no sign of game, there was no edible berries along the shore that I could find. There was nothing worth traveling out there again for. So that was going to be a one and done deal, regardless of the weather or anything that happened. So that's why I did that. I explained that, but there's just not time. You see how long it takes to explain this? They can't include that on TV for every person, every participant, and every situation they get themselves into. Got asked a lot of questions about why I went so intense into my shelter. Two reasons. Obviously, the bears. I was in my tarp shelter for the first 10 days. And, at night you just hear them walking around all over. And for the most part, you're not too concerned. They're generally not going to leave you alone. But, I mean, you see it a couple times a year. Sometimes something happens, and we're putting ourselves right out there in the middle of it. There was a bad salmon run, so that was a concern that the bear may not have as much food as normal. They could be hungry, they can be agitated because of that. So that was definitely a concern. The other thing is where I was able to build my shelter. Um, One of the few places that wasn't in a complete burnt area or a beaver swamp. That area had large cottonwoods all around. And while I was sleeping at night, trees would get blown down. We would get wind almost every night howling through that area. And I didn't have much of a wind block because right next to me was a really bad forest burn area. So there's nothing blocking that wind. And that wind would come in, and pretty much every night trees were falling down. And I'm talking large trees. From day one, I had started cutting widowmakers down. I'm cutting it with a handsaw, but I'm cutting trees that are 12, 16, 18 inches in diameter. And I think I probably, by the time I left, I had cut down 12 or 14 trees that large just to try and keep myself safe. But there are ones, those cottonwoods rot from the inside out. They blow down. They look like they're alive and they'll still blow down. So I definitely wanted a shelter that could withstand a tree falling on me. I mean, the bottom line is I didn't really want to get crippled or die being out there because of something stupid like a tree falling on me. So that was a big concern. It was that or be in a place where there's absolutely no shelter from the wind, no cover from the rain. You're just wide open in a forest fire burn. And that was pretty miserable terrain. Um, why did I go to so much detail on so many things? I think I saw some people mention, hey, it seems like you really tried to keep yourself busy. When you ran out of things to do, it really started to hit home for you as far as grieving for your daughter, missing your family, stuff like that. In a way, that's true. In a way, they edit it to enhance that. But it is definitely true. However, I am a little bit OCD. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Um, so cutting the logs on the side of my cabin and trimming them up even. Wasted calories, yeah, wasted time. But it's hard for me to, those kinds of things eat me up. It even, it bothered me that I could see a slight curve at the top of them. It wasn't perfectly straight, and that bothered me. Um, it's what makes me a good carpenter. Probably makes me a bad businessman because I pay so much attention to detail in everything I do. Probably even when no one's going to notice, no one's going to see it, it doesn't matter. But that's the way I am. And it's not just because there is a camera there, it's going on TV or what have you. If I'm doing that at, in a real situation and there's no cameras, I'm still going to do it. Um, it's just kind of the way I am. And I know it wasn't the smartest strategy for survival, but part of who I am. Now, I think that answers most of those questions. As far as missing my family, grieving for my daughter, is that the reason I tapped out? Yes, I was definitely grieving for my daughter. It was affecting me more than I do at home. Um, I typically work 70 to 80 hours a week. I'm a contractor, I'm self employed. Anyone in the contracting business knows you cannot find enough good help. I've been understaffed for years. I am so far behind schedule. Right now, it's mid August. I am just now working on projects that I did the contracts for back in February. That's how booked up I am. And I cannot keep up, and I cannot get enough good help to keep up with that stuff. I'm always working. And being honest with myself, that's probably part of a coping mechanism that I have for dealing with grieving for my daughter and stuff like that. Is keeping myself busy. I've always got things going on. If I'm not working, then I'm hiking with my son or working on projects around the house. I don't ever stop moving. So when you get on the show, um, building the cabin and all the little things, and they showed me making that pipe, little project. You're keeping your mind busy and you're keeping your hands busy. When you're doing something like fishing, my hands are busy, but my mind's not really that busy, and so those thoughts are creeping in. Day 13, I think it was, I got that bull trout. I probably had, even with working on my shelter, I had probably put 40 hours into fishing at that point, just standing out there casting. Oh, that's another question: is why didn't you have a fishing pole? I did. I made a fishing pole. It was not as cool as Clay's fishing pole by any means. My spool that I had, I did not think ahead enough to get a spool that was smooth and worked on all that. And I think he explained all that in a video. But my spool that I had for my fishing line had ridges. It had the slice that you put the fishing line in to keep it from unraveling. All that stuff. It didn't work great for that. I would unravel line. I had a fishing pole, and I actually found that when I was hand casting with a heavy lure that I had made, I was actually getting 5 to 10 feet further distance by hand casting. And that's why I was hand casting. It was easier. I was running into less problems than running with a fishing pole, at least with the fishing pole that I had made. So I did do that. Um, so back to those down times when I'm thinking about my daughter, and you're trying to ride this balance of conserving calories but also hunting and doing all this other stuff, and there's a lot of downtime involved when you're not used to being that idle, and so that was definitely hitting me. And I think part of it too is leading up to the show. I think we got notification that we had been selected to go on the show right around 3 weeks before we launched. So I had 3 weeks to close down my business, finish up my open contracts, purchase the gear that I needed for going out there. And because I live in Tennessee now, I don't live in Alaska, I don't have that same cold weather gear. So I was, at 2 in the morning, I was buying my gear online. I was working 16-hour days, 7 days a week. I worked until the day before I flew out. So I didn't get to enjoy that time with my family. I didn't get time to prep for the show. It was, hey, you've been selected. You got 3 weeks. You got to get on a plane. Um, and hurry up. So, I was extra, extra, extra busy. And then all of a sudden, in quarantine, it was still, meeting people. I was in quarantine with Biko and Tim, and we were fishing on a lake, and, all this stuff going on. And then we go to orientation, you're learning how to use the cameras, and you're in classes all day and just doing all this stuff. And then you get dropped off. And then once the cabin's built, there's nothing going on. And that stuff did definitely come crashing down on me. But the bottom line of why I decided to tap out is that at that point, right or wrong, I did not see a way to win. Day 6, my bowstring got chewed through, kind of like Matt's, except it didn't get chewed all the way through. I had 9 out of 16 strands chewed through. It was frayed up on a couple more strands. It was ready to break. Archery is probably my weakest skill out of everything that I was taking with me for my skill tools to bring onto the show. And I knew that tying the line or trying to repair it. I was going to change the brace height. It was no longer going to be tuned to my arrows. How was I going to adapt to it? But also, I had spent an entire day hiking around. I hiked to the top of my property. I had hiked the other time to the far end of my property. I'd hiked all over my property, and I saw no signs of deer anywhere. There were no rabbits anywhere. And I knew we were all facing a starvation season between the regulations and things that we already knew. We all knew that the hare population, the rabbit population was at a super low. Rabbit populations go in cycles, and it was super low, so we knew that it was going to be rare to see them. And so I had a bow that was basically out of commission. I saw no deer sign, so no big game. Fish was going to be a big part of my diet in my mind, and I had this shallow water. I went out swimming and bathing, and you go out 75 yards and you're this deep in the water, and you're trying to get these large trout. And those trout, that time of year, it's getting colder, the water's getting colder, their metabolism slows, they go to deeper water, they stop feeding, so the fish aren't biting. Now, in my mind, again, right or wrong, but in my mind, my perception at that time was that anyone with deeper water was destined to beat me. I'm imagining Coulter, because Coulter, half of his food, he catches fish to survive where he lives. And I'm picturing if someone like him or, someone else has deeper water, and I'm imagining these people, they have to have 5, 6, 10 fish by now. Here I've caught one fish. And that's not going to work. And I've got no large game, and my bow is out of commission, and how am I going to win this? And if it comes down to all of us starving, I'm not going to outstarve Biko. Now, that may be a defeatist attitude, admittedly, absolutely. But the other part, the part where my family does come into play, is my pride makes me want to get dragged off from that show. My pride, my competitive nature makes me want to stay so long, and even if I can't win, but I make it to third place or second place, or I make it 60 days or whatever, that would feel good to me. The hard part is being a husband and a father, I feel my first obligation is to them. And if I have such a slim chance of taking home $500,000, then I should really be at home with them. I should be at home with my business making money. And I feel like it began to feel like I'm doing this as a midlife crisis thing. This is not the best thing for my family if I can't win. I didn't have any intentions of turning my 15 minutes on a TV show into anything more than an experience. I've got a business, I'm comfortable in what I do. So that wasn't my intention. It wasn't my goal. I wasn't trying to self-promote. I wasn't trying to, push a brand or a YouTube channel or, I don't teach survival for a living. I'm a contractor. I'm a family guy. So how is this going to help me to stay out here longer? The bottom line is when I leave, I have to put my tool bags back on. I have to go to work. I have to physically work for a living. I have to be able to put in these hours to make money to feed my family. And if I stay there and I'm emaciated and I don't win, then have I really won anything? Those were the thoughts that were going through my mind. And I really explained that because it was actually day 16 that I really decided to tap out. And day 19 I tapped out. But that is what was going through my mind. That was what was making me decide. Now, why did I tap out on day 19? Why not day 30? And these are all things that I said on camera. They just didn't make the cut. And I totally understand why. My son's birthday was coming up. 10th birthday. And I figured if I'm going to stick around, sticking around to day 30, it would have been easy for me. I wasn't, starving or anything like that. I had lost about 30 pounds in 19 days, which is about how much weight I put on for the show. I put on about 30 pounds and I lost the 30 pounds. I was back to my normal weight. I wasn't starving. I was actually felt great at that point. And so I could have gone 30 days and I would have missed my son's birthday just for my own personal pride to say I stayed 30 days. And I knew that I would get roasted online for leaving and whatever. And I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. The opinion of strangers across the country don't mean anything. What means something to me is feeding my family. And the fact of the matter is, I was away from my family. I was going to miss my son's 10th birthday, and I was essentially losing money by being gone. Um, yes, of course, any TV show you appear on is going to pay you a small stipend appearance to go on there. But as a contractor, I have insurances and bonds and business lease, building lease, and business debt, and all these bills that I have to pay whether I'm working or not. I can't just turn those things off for, a month or two or three or whatever and then turn it back on. I have those things, those expenses. And so I was losing money by being on the show. And that felt extremely selfish. And I was willing to take all the barbs and arrows from the couch commandos across the country in order to do what's best for my family. And I know I'll get people saying, "Oh, you're using your family as an excuse." I don't really care. You can say what you want, but at the end of the day, I'm taking care of my family. I'm feeding my family. That's what's important, not somebody's opinion. I don't really care. Again, when people say, how could you miss your family that bad after 19 days, barely 2 weeks? Well, we went to Canada for 2 weeks for quarantine. We were in orientation for another 2 weeks. I was out there for 19 days. You get brought out, and you have about 10 days of refeeding and interviews and talks with doctors and stuff like that. So when I tapped out on day 19, that was actually I believe it was 46 days I'd been away from my family. And by the time I actually got home, it was almost 2 months I'd been away from my family. So it wasn't like I was gone 2 weeks away from my family. That was like 2 months that I was gone away from my family to do that little bit of filming, to be on TV for 20 minutes or whatever my experience was. I was away from my family for quite a while. And it was absolutely a phenomenal experience. I would absolutely do it again. Do I regret my decision? Absolutely not. Would I do things differently if I were to go back and do it again? Of course I would. I would absolutely do things differently on this end of it because I've been through that experience. Saying you do something differently does not equal regret because at that time I did the best that I knew how with the information that I had, the mindset that I had, and I did the best I could. No regrets. If I went back, and I would absolutely do it again. I would totally do it again. But I would do things differently. Would I tap out? If I went back, would I tap out on day 19 knowing what I know now? Probably not. I would probably stick it out longer because there are certain things that you do that are experiences for yourself that you actually benefit your family even if you're away from them. My son grew as a person while I was gone. My wife, our relationship, all good things came out of this. It can be uncomfortable when you face change, especially when you're middle-aged and in a rut in what you do and you do the same thing. Experiencing change can be uncomfortable, but if you embrace it as growth, then it's a positive thing. So overall, I loved my experience. I would absolutely do it again. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that has been so supportive and all the positive comments and all the love and everything. And anyone that I reached through what I said about family or my daughter or anything like that. There's been so many people that have reached out to me, and I couldn't be happier that we made that connection. So thank you all very much. I'm sorry that this video got a little bit long-winded, but I wanted to try and get all that information out there. If you have any questions, let me know. Put it in the comments. Friday, I should have a video about my experience here doing my casting tapes to try and get on alone. So watch out for that. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification, all that trite stuff that all the YouTube people say or whatever. It's gonna help the channel. I'm really I'm not trying to push a channel to turn this into something grand. I just want to answer questions for you guys. I want to share some of my life with you because I have been gifted an amazing life. I have been gifted amazing experiences in life, and I want to share it with you. I know I enjoy watching YouTube channels with people that get to do things that I don't get to do, or know things that I don't know, or just interesting stuff. And I enjoy being able to watch part of that. And I've had a lot of people reach out and say, we want to be a part of some of those things that you do. Please share it with you. So that's why I'm doing it. But when you support me by showing that you want to see these videos, that lets me know it's worthwhile to keep doing them. So thank you much. Have a wonderful day.